Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Zoo to You. Today we are celebrating Lobo Week, which is a week to recognize the efforts of the many people who have been working to restore the Mexican gray wolf, otherwise known as the Lobo, to their ancestral homelands in southwestern United States and Mexico. So today we have our 6 Mexican gray wolf brothers. They have all been named after female conservationists. So our smallest wolf is Craighead. We have Mittermeier, Leck, Goodall, Beatty, and Carson. And so these brothers are 4 years old. They'll be turning 5 soon. And they came to us from the Wolf Conservation Center in New York. And so wolves have very complex social behavior. They live in tightly organized packs, and they communicate through a lot of different ways. They communicate through howling, their body positions, even scent marking, which you might see if you come and visit them at Stone Zoo. And so these animals work together really effectively to adapt to many different kinds of environments and work together to get prey. So this includes deer, jackrabbit, mice, and even peccary. So throughout this chat, I encourage you to watch some of their natural behaviors, maybe even some scent marking as we're seeing in the middle of the screen right now. And so I encourage you to watch how they're communicating with one another and how they work together as a group. So this year marks the 25th anniversary of a couple exciting milestones for Mexican gray wolf conservation. Today actually marks the 25th anniversary of Mexican gray wolves being reintroduced into the wild after going extinct in the wild. And this year marks the first time that wolf pups were born in the wild after also going extinct. In 1998 was also the year that Zoo New England, our zoo, joined the Mexican gray wolf species survival plan. So on March 29th, 1998, exactly 25 years ago, 11 Mexican gray wolves from breeding programs were released into the Apache National Forest in Arizona, having been extinct in the wild for about 20 years throughout their entire range. And then as of 2022, there are at least 196 Mexican gray wolves in the wild. So there has been a tremendous increase in their population over the last 25 years. So similar to how wolf packs organize themselves, the recovery of this iconic and important species could not have taken place without the collaboration of many different people, governments, non-government agencies, scientists, concerned citizens, livestock producers, conservation centers, and of course, zoos like us. So although we may not howl and scent mark like they do, there has certainly been a lot of communication and collaboration among all these concerned parties. But before we get into that, here's a brief history about how we have gotten to where we are today on this 25th anniversary. So in pre-colonization, so before the settlers came to the United States, they estimated that there were thousands of Mexican gray wolves and gray wolves that lived in harmony with the indigenous peoples. Some people estimate somewhere between 250,000 and maybe as many as 2 million wolves inhabiting the greater continental United States. So this includes their cousin, the gray wolf, who is larger, but they are distinct genetically. And then by the 1630s, there started to be some conflict between wolves and people, and there was the first documented gray wolf bounty. So this is a reward for killing gray wolves. And this conflict intensified throughout the 1800s and the 1900s. Humans' settlement continued to intensify across the Southwest, and so conflicts between wolves and livestock intensified, and many rewards were given to people to hunt the Mexican gray wolves. This conflict intensified until there were only a few individuals left in the 1970s, and they were considered critically endangered. So at that point, people captured the last few wild individuals, perhaps even as few as 5, and started efforts to breed them in human care with those that were already in human care. And what's remarkable about their recovery is that the US and Mexico have collaborated on this recovery effort since this time. So they've been collaborating together for a number of years. And for example, wolves have even been brought across the border. So there was a wolf pair that was identified in the Southwest, and they were transferred to Chihuahua in northern Mexico. And so U.S. Fish and Wildlife biologists captured the wolves in the wild, and then they were even driven across the border and cleared customs. So this has really been a joint effort that has been in the works for quite a while, and we can certainly see the results of this partnership. So how do our band of these 6 brothers tie into all of this? So our band of brothers is part of a species survival plan. This species survival plan is managed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. A lot of our endangered animals at the zoo are part of species survival plans, or known as SSPs, which is essentially a breeding program in which different institutions and zoos collaborate to make sure that animals in human care have diverse genetics, and they have a population that can remain stable for many years to come. But what's different about the SSP for the wolves is that they are managed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, so we treat them a little bit differently at the zoo than we do a lot of our other animals. We try to minimize human contact with them, and so this is something that we see in terms of training. A lot of our animals will receive training, mostly for medical procedures, so training animals to present certain parts of their body, maybe even getting voluntary injections. But our Mexican gray wolves don't receive a lot of training, and we, as you can see, their exhibit is quite naturalistic, so we're trying to make sure that we make sure they have all of their wild instincts intact. And although we don't currently have a female wolf at the moment, so they aren't breeding, it is possible that we may have one in the future, and it's also possible that their genetics may end up in the wild populations. So in the past, they've been trying to introduce adult Mexican gray wolves into the wild, but recently they've been trying a new technique, which is called cross-fostering. So essentially, wolves that are born in human care, they are then brought to the wild, given to a surrogate wild mother, and this wild mother will raise the pups, and as long as she accepts them and she raises them with her original litter, they have a really great chance of surviving in the wild. And so this cross-fostering program has allowed for greater survival in the wild and has also increased the genetic diversity of the wolves that are currently living in the wild. So although our 6 brothers may not end up going to Arizona, their genetics certainly might. And we've had wolves in the past that their descendants are currently living in the wild. So this is a really exciting program in that it's very closely connected to our wild wolf numbers. So their numbers certainly couldn't have recovered without the efforts of many different people, many different institutions. But what about the original reason that the wolves became endangered in the first place? Many people fear for their livestock, and this has been continuing to be an issue. And what has been done to prevent this wolf and livestock conflict? So the Mexican Wolf Interagency Field Team, nonprofits, the U.S. Forest Service, and livestock producers are working together to limit interactions between wolves and livestock. So they have proactive, non-lethal measures such as fencing, livestock guard dogs, and range riders who will even patrol large areas by livestock who are perhaps at risk of being predated by wolves. And this is similar to how other institutions and other nonprofits and other places have been managing some of their livestock conflicts. So for example, the Snow Leopard Trust has also been working with owners of livestock to provide corrals and compensation if their livestock are eaten by snow leopards. And even in Namibia as well, they've used guard dogs to help protect livestock from cheetah attacks. So these are techniques that have been employed in a lot of different contexts and have really seen a lot of success. And then in addition to those methods, there is a form of compensation for people who have lost their livestock. So between all of these different things and all these different parties, we've been able to minimize conflict between wolves and livestock. So although we may not live where Mexican gray wolves are found, if you would like to help them, you can start by spreading some positive messages and positive opinions about them, because they are really important species. They are a keystone species, and their presence dramatically shapes the landscape in which they live. And there's a lot of misconceptions about them. So Sharing the solutions, sharing the success stories, and how people are working across borders to save this keystone species are all really great messages to share. And if you'd like, you can also Zoodopt a Mexican gray wolf. Zoodoption helps us provide excellent care, food, and enrichment for all of our animals. So, without further ado, thank you for joining us for Lobo Week, and be sure to share with your pack the amazing recovery story of the Mexican gray wolf. And if you have any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer them.
We had one question come in. Are they related?
They are related. They are a pack of brothers, so they're all 6 brothers. They had some sisters as well, but they have ended up at a different location. But a fun fact about them is that their father was actually the face of Lobo Week a couple years ago.
And if people come to the zoo and they have a hard time seeing the wolves, if they're not up at the window like they have been during this video, where can they look for them? Where can they expect them to be hiding?
Well, a great place to start is looking at the very, very top of the exhibit. Sometimes you can see their little ears poking out. There's one wolf wandering around at the very top right now.
Oh, I'll see if I can point in the video right there. Perfect.
So that's a good place to start. And then if you don't see them immediately, you can also walk up the path, and then sometimes you can catch a glimpse over the fence from the upper part of the exhibit. But we've designed the exhibit to be as natural as possible. There's even a hidden pool, which you may not know about unless you've seen them jump in there in the summer. So there's a whole pool and a waterfall system that they jump into and splash around in the summer, so that's quite a treat. But there's a lot of hidden secrets in this exhibit for them, and they really have, since they've gotten more comfortable, they roam around the whole exhibit, as you can see.
Excellent. And then one question that we do typically get a lot is, which one is the alpha? Is there an alpha?
That is a great question. So in the wild, normally it will be a mated pair who will be the dominant couple, and then they'll be raising some of their younger pups and some of the yearlings. But because there isn't a female, there isn't necessarily a dominant wolf. We sometimes see that behavior changing. Although we did mention something about wolf communication before, and you can look at the posture of their tails to kind of understand maybe who is the dominant wolf. If the wolf has their tail up, they're maybe acting as the alpha that day, and if their tail is tucked between their legs, then maybe they're acting more submissive in that moment. But it does change. And I think those were all the questions that we had, so thank you again for joining me. Happy Lobo Week, and please come join our brothers and say hi to them this week as the weather is getting really nice. Thank you for joining.